Matthew writes in, would the Four Horsemen have worked just as well in the WWF with the way they were presented with jets, cars, etc.? Would that have worked in New York as well as it did in Atlanta?
I don't know why not.
It is interesting though, because, you know, there was, a very much more cartoonish presentation to the WWF in that era. And I do wonder if some of the, obviously the $1 Million Man thing, you know, the wealth aspect, that's easy, but the women piece that Rick made such a big deal about, I don't know that would have worked on WWF TV. Am I wrong?
What, bringing the women out on TV and doing all those shenanigans?
Yeah. So, and just, you know, oh, at the Marriott tonight, room 236, you know, we're going to kiss them all, make them all cry, you know, this typical Flair stuff. I don't know that Vince would have went for that back then. Am I wrong?
I don't think he would have went for the Four Horsemen period.
Because it wasn't his idea?
Wasn't his creation.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that was Rick going off on those tangents with all that stuff. I mean, it's just a promo.
Right.
You know, 9 times out of 10, we're moving on to the next town anyway.
Yeah. That's the thing I think a lot of people miss is, I think for whatever reason, and I know that sometimes even Rick himself had trouble blurring the lines, but, it's supposed to be entertainment. I mean, he's making out with mannequins on TV. Let's not overthink it.
Exactly. And that's what it was. It was the girl thing was a Rick thing.
Right.
You know, once he got his spiel out of the way about, you know, to hear him tell it, you know, if he walked behind the curtain, there was 150 of them lined up right there at the arena.
Yeah. No, he joked that, there was a limousine outside a mile long filled with women just dying for him to go woo. And then they'd come around to you and you'd say, okay, now I'm going to kick your ass. And you just brought that edge of realism to the Horsemen. And it's the reason people are still talking about that faction all these years later.
Well, I mean, that's what made it work. You know, then you look at Tully, and Tully is the traditional smartass.
Right.
You know, he's the quarterback who tells you that, you know, hey man, you got to catch those. You know, he had heat with everybody, and that's what made him special. And then you had Barry, you know, and you had Ole, you had those guys and Luger. Then they brought what they brought to the table. But Rick, his whole thing was money, women, cars, houses, watches. You know, he'll take off a $400 pair of shoes and throw one of them out in the audience. Dude, that's a car payment.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't think it would have ever been processed and used the right way with Vince. No, I do not. And it was better off just probably the way it turned out.
Yeah. You bring up a great point because, whereas Flair was definitely trying to, live like a rock star, you've always presented yourself as the everyman. And once upon a time, you were best of friends with Rick. How often did you find yourself saying, God dog, Rick, do you really need to spin this, or should you really be doing that? Or did you learn fairly quickly that it doesn't matter what you say or do, he's going to do what he wants to do?
Bleeding money from every orifice, every day of his life. Example, we would pull up to the Marriott there in Atlanta after the show. Here the guys would see us. They would come running because they knew Rick was a mark. He would give a guy $20 to move the car from the front curb to the first parking place that was 10 feet away. He would hand the guy a 20. I would take the 20 out of the guy's hand, hand him a 5, go park the car myself, and put the 20 back in Rick's pocket. Quit being ridiculous. Rick would I've seen this, would fly to, let's just say Atlanta, first day of a loop, go over to his room, we'd be getting ready to go to the gym or something. He would unzip his garment bag, have like 5 suits, any number of slacks and shirts that had been folded in half, but were already dry cleaned, had just been dry cleaned. He would unzip the thing on the bag, look at them and go, oh, this is wrinkled. He would send it out to be dry cleaned again. That's a couple of $100.
Yeah.
That's insanity. What do? I unzip the bag, it's wrinkled, I hang it up in the bathroom, shut the door, cut on the shower, steam it, good as gold. Nada, not a dime, not a nickel. That's the difference in Rick and I. Now, when you're making the kind of money that he's made for the length of time he's made it, a couple of $100 means absolutely nothing. A couple of $100 at my house, a lot of money. So I may have came across like the blue collar working man because that's exactly who I was. I did not make the money to try to live like Ric Flair. I didn't have the inkling to try to live like Ric Flair. I was cool just living like me and just paying cash.
Hoop writes in, at what point did you know the pairing of Tully, Rick, Ole, JJ, and yourself was going to be billed as a faction and not just a few shots together?
2 weeks in, when we were doing the Horseman Symbol of Excellence in the arenas, 2 weeks after the first promo aired, and Jimmy Crockett came up to Tully afterwards and went, hey, this is getting over. Tully looked at him, and I believe him. Now, this is the owner of the company. Should have been shown the utmost respect. Tully looked at him and went, no shit. Which said it all. And the reason it got over is because it didn't come from the office. It was one of those rare things that just morphed. It just happened. And it just clicked, and it clicked 2 weeks in, which is amazing.
Let's talk about, after Ole. Jeremy Martin writes in, who do you consider the fourth horseman? So if Ole's out, is it Barry then, or is it somebody else in your mind?
No, Barry was a perfect fit. He really was. Barry Windham was incredible performer. Good looking guy, looked like a pro, big, could do it all. There's no rethinking that. Barry, that was his spot all along. It just took a minute to get him there.
Interesting question here about way back in the day. Talent writes in, if Magnum TA hadn't went down, did he have the Sting spot before it was Sting's? If not, was there ever anyone else in consideration for that spot besides Sting?
I think Magnum would have went through the roof. He had it all. He, good, solid performer. He was getting better every day. Looked incredible. Looked like a movie star. Had a good head on his shoulders. Worked his butt off. I think he was headed for superstardom before the tragedy happened.
Athletic Geek writes in, can you tell us the details about what went into the parking lot attack on Dusty Rhodes? Were there any behind the scenes stories from that day? Are there any issues from local law enforcement, etc.?
No, there was no issues with law enforcement. We pretty much, I think JJ got with Dusty earlier in the day. He told him what he wanted. He communicated that to us. We had a time that we were to see Dusty roll by, and we were already in JJ's Cadillac and with a camera in there that was held hostage. So we were making him shoot all of this inside the Cadillac so that made sense. And we were following Dusty down to the office, and pretty much, it was kind of like in the old days where you didn't get together at a building and talk over a match. You didn't talk over this at the same setting. It was like he talked to JJ that morning somewhere. JJ brought that information to us, and, we didn't need a walkthrough. It went down like it was laid out, and it was one of those that will, it will stand the test of time. It was really cool. People remember it. And it was very unselfish on his part to do that for us. It put a lot of heat on us at that time. People did not like us at that point in time.